I pulled into my sister's driveway and just sat there for a moment, engine off, hands still on the wheel. Through the living room window, I could see the warm glow of string lights and the silhouettes of people moving around inside. My brother-in-law's 40th birthday party. I had promised my sister I would come, and I kept my promises, even when every bone in my body was begging me to just drive home, pour a glass of wine, and sleep for 12 hours straight. The past 4 months had been the most grueling, most consuming stretch of my professional life. I was 31 years old, and I had just closed the largest real estate investment deal my firm had ever executed, 32 properties across 6 states, a portfolio worth just over $240 million, restructured, revalued, and absorbed into our fund in under 120 days. The board had not just approved the deal. They had promoted me. Effective the first of the month, I was the youngest managing partner in the history of Caldwell Meridian Capital. I had not told anyone in my family. It wasn't a secret exactly. It was more that I had been so buried, so completely swallowed by the work, that there had simply been no air left for personal conversations. I had missed my niece's dance recital. I had sent my mother a birthday card 3 weeks late. I had not returned a single call from my sister in 6 weeks, only texting back short, apologetic fragments. Swamped at work. Sorry. We'll call soon. I had meant every word and failed every time. My phone lit up on the passenger seat. A text from my sister. "Your car is in the driveway. Get in here." I laughed despite myself, grabbed the birthday card I had picked up at a gas station 20 minutes ago, and went inside. The house was loud and warm and smelled like my brother-in-law's famous smoked ribs. My sister appeared from the kitchen the moment I stepped through the door, already talking. "You look exhausted. Have you eaten today? Real food? Not coffee." She pulled me into a hug before I could answer. I was still in my coat when her mother-in-law materialized at my elbow. Her name was Diane, and she had a particular gift for arriving exactly when you least expected her. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and an opinion about everything. "Oh," she said, looking me up and down. "You finally made it. My sister mentioned you've been having a rough go of it lately." She patted my hand. "Don't you worry, honey. Plenty of girls your age go through a career slump. It's nothing to be ashamed of." I blinked. Career slump. She was already moving on, flagging down someone across the room. "There's someone you should meet," she said, waving me along. "My son's college friend. He just made partner at his firm. Very successful. It would do you good to talk to someone like that. Might inspire you." I followed, not because I wanted to, but because I was too tired to redirect the current. His name was Marcus. He was tall, confident in the easy, performative way of someone who had never once doubted whether he belonged in a room. He was holding a glass of scotch and talking loudly about cap rates to 2 people who looked like they were searching for an exit. "Marcus," Diane said, cutting into the conversation. "This is my daughter-in-law's little sister. She's been going through some career difficulties. She's in real estate, like you. Isn't that something?" Marcus turned to me and smiled the smile of someone who has just been handed a slightly disappointing gift. "Real estate," he said. "What do you do exactly?" "Sales?" "Investment," I said. "Oh." He nodded slowly, the way people do when they're already forming their next sentence. "Good for you. It's a tough market for the smaller boutique operators. A lot of those little shops have been getting squeezed out. The big institutional players are just eating everything up right now. Hard to compete when you don't have the capital base." "I see," I said. "Where are you at?" he asked. "What firm?" "Caldwell Meridian," I said. He paused for exactly half a second, then he laughed, short and a little too loud. "Caldwell Meridian, as in Caldwell Meridian Capital. That's the one," I said. He recovered quickly. Sure. Great brand, good regional presence. I'm at Hargrove Voss myself." He said the name the way people say the name of an exclusive club. "We just closed a $110 million fund last quarter. Record for us." He lifted his glass slightly, a small self-congratulatory toast. "Congratulations," I said, and I meant it. 110 million was a serious number. Hargrove Voss was a serious firm. "What's your role over there?" he asked. "Acquisitions? Managing partner?" I said. The smile stayed on his face, but something behind his eyes shifted slightly, recalibrated. He wasn't sure if I was joking. Diane jumped back in, blissfully unaware. "Oh, That's a nice title, honey. Every company has their own way of doing things. Marcus here is a full equity partner. It's a little different at the bigger firms. More rigorous, more competitive. You know how it is. Marcus said nothing to correct her. He just took a sip of his scotch. That's the thing about title inflation these days, he said, finding his footing again. Everyone's a partner or a director or a VP. Doesn't always mean what it used to. Real question is assets under management, right? That's where the rubber meets the road. He looked at me with the particular expression of a man issuing a quiz he expects to win. I smiled. You're right, I said. That is the real question. And I left it there, because across the room my sister was waving me over to sing happy birthday, and I decided that Marcus and his quiz could wait. The dinner table seated 14. I ended up directly across from Marcus, which I suspected was Diane's arrangement. She had placed herself at the corner between us, clearly intending to facilitate what she imagined would be a mentorship conversation. Marcus spent the appetizer course explaining the commercial real estate cycle to the table at large. He was not wrong about any of it. He was also not saying anything that hadn't been in every industry publication for the past 18 months. But he said it with such confident authority that two of my brother-in-law's friends were nodding along as though receiving scripture. He spent the salad course talking about a mixed-use development deal his firm had worked on in Nashville. It was a solid deal, $42 million, good location, strong anchor tenant. He described it in the language of someone who wanted you to understand the complexity involved. Then he turned to me. So what's the biggest deal you've worked on? He asked. The tone was casual, but the intent was not. It was the kind of question designed to establish hierarchy. I considered the question for a moment. I had a strict habit of not discussing deal specifics publicly, not at dinner tables, not at cocktail parties, not anywhere. Confidentiality wasn't just policy at Caldwell Meridian. It was religion. Recently closed something, I said. Multi-state portfolio. It keeps me busy. Multi-state, he repeated, nodding slowly. So like, a handful of properties spread around? I know a lot of the smaller operators like to diversify geographically to manage risk when the individual asset values are lower. Diane made a sympathetic sound. It's all so complicated, isn't it? Marcus, explain to her what you mean. Marcus leaned back in his chair. Look, no offense intended. It's just that at a certain scale, the complexity changes. The legal structure alone, the fund mechanics, the LP relationships. It's a different animal. Most people don't get exposure to that until they've been in the business a long time. He glanced at me. How long have you been at Caldwell Meridian? 4 years, I said. See, that's what I mean. He said it kindly, which was almost worse. You've got time. You'll get there. I didn't make partner until I was 38. It's a long road. I'm 31, I said. He smiled. Exactly my point. My sister, sitting 2 seats down, caught my eye. She had a look on her face that I recognized from childhood. The look she got right before she said something that would make everything worse. I gave her the smallest shake of my head. Not yet. The main course arrived, and the conversation fragmented. I talked to my brother-in-law about his garden. I talked to my niece about her upcoming soccer tournament. I breathed and ate and let the evening flow around me. But Marcus wasn't done. By the time the birthday cake appeared, he had maneuvered the conversation back. You know what you should do, he said, leaning across the table toward me with the air of a man bestowing wisdom. You should look at getting into a mentorship program. Hargrove Voss actually runs one for emerging professionals in the industry. Younger people, earlier in their careers, people who want to understand how the institutional side really works. I could probably put in a word. Get you an application. Oh, Marcus, Diane cooed. That is so generous. That's very thoughtful, I said. I kept my voice warm and even. It's nothing, he said, waving a hand. I do it because I remember what it's like to be figuring things out. You need people who've been through it to show you the ropes. My niece tugged on my sleeve. Auntie, are you famous? She whispered. Dad said you're a big deal at work. I laughed and kissed the top of her head. Your dad is very sweet, I told her. Marcus heard this. He looked at my brother-in-law. She works with you? He asked. My brother-in-law laughed. No. She's way above my pay grade, man. He said it easily, without any particular weight. and then he was distracted by someone asking him about the ribs recipe. Marcus looked back at me. He was doing the quiet recalibration again. I let him sit with it. After the cake, people drifted into smaller conversations. I found myself standing near the fireplace with a cup of coffee when Marcus approached again. Diane was not with him this time. Without her stage direction, he seemed slightly less certain of the script. "I want to ask you something," he said. Directly this time. "What exactly is your role at Caldwell Meridian? Because my brother-in-law said something earlier, and I want to make sure I understand." "Managing partner," I said again. "Same as before. As in you manage a team of partners? Or as in you are one of the equity partners?" "The latter," I said. He was quiet for a second. "Since when?" "Officially, since the 1st of last month," I said, "though I've been doing the work for about 2 years. How big is your portfolio?" he asked. And I noticed the quizmaster tone was gone. This was a genuine question. "I don't share deal specifics at dinner parties," I said, and smiled to take any edge off it. He looked at me for a moment. Then he said, "Diane told me you were struggling. She said your sister mentioned you'd been really stressed, that work hadn't been going well." I took a sip of my coffee. "My sister told Diane that I had been stressed," I said. "That part is true. The reason she left out is that I spent the last 4 months closing a $240 million portfolio acquisition across 6 states. The number landed. I watched him process it. "That's Caldwell Meridian's Q3 deal," he said. "The one in the trade press. The Halloran portfolio restructure." I didn't confirm or deny. I just looked at him. "That was you," he said. It wasn't a question anymore. "Our fund," I said. I let it. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something I did not expect. "I owe you an apology. I made a lot of assumptions tonight." "You did," I agreed. He had the grace to look genuinely uncomfortable. "The mentorship program thing," he said. "Also the title inflation comment I offered." He exhaled. "Yeah, that too." He was quiet again. "Can I ask you something?" "You can ask. Why didn't you just say so? At dinner, when I was being an idiot. Why didn't you just tell me?" "I thought about this. Because I was a guest at my brother-in-law's birthday party," I said. "And it wasn't the right room for a resume recitation. And honestly," I said, "I wanted to see how long you'd keep going." He laughed at that. It was a real laugh, surprised out of him. "Fair enough," he said. We talked for another 20 minutes, and I discovered that without the performance, Marcus was actually interesting. He knew the Nashville market well. He had strong opinions about interest rate timing. He asked smart questions and listened to the answers. The man underneath the Scotch and scorecard presentation was someone I might have genuinely liked meeting. The drive home was quiet. My windows were fogged with cold. I thought about Diane's hand on my arm. "Career slump, honey?" I thought about the mentorship application, offered like a life preserver to someone standing on solid ground. I thought about my sister's face when she'd caught my eye across the table, the held-back laugh, the loyalty. I had built my career in rooms where I was underestimated. I had learned early that being quiet was not the same as being small, that patience was not the same as weakness, that the most powerful thing you could do in a room full of people performing success was simply to actually have it and say nothing until the moment was right. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister. "Diane cornered me in the kitchen and asked if you were okay. I told her you seemed fine. She said Marcus seemed very interested in talking to you at the end. She wants to know if there's a spark." I laughed out loud in the cold dark of the car. "No spark," I texted back. But he apologized. "So, points for that," she replied with a string of emojis, and then, "Mom called me today. She said she heard from Aunt Carol, who heard from someone that you got laid off. I told her that was insane, but she wants you to call her." I put my phone down and stared at the road. This was the part I had not anticipated. Not Marcus. Not Diane. Not the birthday party. The quiet telephone game version of my life that had been circulating while I was working. I had been so focused on the deal that I had let my silence become a story, and other people had filled in the blanks the way people always do, with the most dramatic, most convenient version available. I called my mother the next morning. She answered on the first ring, which meant she had been waiting. "Honey," she said. "Are you all right?" "I heard that things at work have been hard." "Things at work have been intense," I said. "But not in the way you heard." I told her. Not everything, not the deal specifics, but enough. The promotion, the title, the scale of what I had been doing for the past 4 months. I told her why I had been unreachable and why I had not shared it sooner. I told her I was sorry for the silence, because that part I did owe her. She was quiet for a long time after I finished. Then she said, "I told Carol you were fine. I knew you were fine. But I also knew something was happening, and you weren't telling me, and I didn't know what to do with that." "I know," I said. "I'm sorry." "Your father would be so proud," she said, and her voice was steady and clear. "He always said you had something different, a kind of focus he'd never seen in someone so young." I sat with that for a moment. "I want to come home for a weekend soon," I told her. "Real visit, no laptop." She made me promise 3 times. The conversation with my mother settled something in me that I hadn't known was unsettled. The deal, the promotion, the party, Marcus, Diane, all of it had been professional noise. This was the quiet underneath it. 3 weeks later, Diane called my sister to apologize. My sister told me this over brunch, watching my face with undisguised amusement. Apparently Marcus had mentioned to his parents, who were friendly with Diane, that he had met me at the party and that he had been embarrassingly uninformed about who I was. Diane, being Diane, had done her own research. She had found the trade press piece about the Halloran acquisition. She had read the profile the firm had published on their website. She had, according to my sister, called 3 different people to verify the information before accepting that it was real. She left my sister a voicemail that lasted 4 minutes. She called me a remarkable young woman 6 times. My sister replayed it for me over avocado toast. I put my face in my hands. "She wants to have you to dinner," my sister said. Her words, not mine. "She would like to introduce you to her book club. She thinks you would be an inspiration to the women there." "I would like to never attend that dinner," I said. "I know," my sister said, "but think of the story you'd walk away with. The thing about being underestimated is that people think it should make you angry. And sometimes it does. There is a real and specific frustration that comes from watching someone decide who you are before you've said a word. From sitting at a table where the conversation moves around you like water around a stone, assuming you are fixed and small and in the way. But the other thing about being underestimated, the thing nobody tells you, is that it is also clarifying. It shows you, very quickly, who is actually paying attention, who is asking real questions versus performing curiosity, who is interested in the answer versus interested in the audience. It shows you who you actually want in your corner. Marcus sent me a LinkedIn message 2 days after the party. It was professional and direct. He said he had been impressed by what he had learned, that he respected how I had handled the evening, and that if I was ever interested in exploring co-investment opportunities between our firms, he would welcome the conversation. I appreciated the message because it was clean. No performance. No overcompensation. Just an adult acknowledging he had misjudged a situation and moving forward. I wrote back. I told him I appreciated the message and that I was open to a conversation. I told him our Q4 pipeline had some interesting assets and that I would have my assistant reach out to schedule a call. He responded in under 3 minutes. The assistant, the Q4 pipeline, the casual mention of scheduling infrastructure. I could tell from the speed of his reply that these details had done their quiet work. Good, I thought. Now we're speaking the same language. My sister came over for dinner the following Saturday. She brought wine and the leftover birthday cake she had been storing in her freezer for reasons she refused to explain. We sat at my kitchen table and she told me that Diane had officially invited me to the book club dinner, that Marcus had apparently told his mother I was brilliant, and that my brother-in-law had texted her to say the party had been the most interesting one he'd hosted in years. "You should have just told them," my sister said, refilling her glass. At the party, when Diane started in with the career slump thing, I shook my head. "And say what? Actually, I'm a managing partner and I just closed a $250 million deal, so, in the middle of his birthday party?" She considered this. "Okay, that would have been terrible." "It would have been terrible," I agreed. "So instead, you just sat there while Marcus explained real estate to you for 40 minutes. He's actually quite good at it," I said. Once he stopped performing, she pointed at me. "That. Right there. That is the most you thing you have ever said." We laughed for a long time about that. I thought about it later, after she had gone home and the apartment was quiet. What was the most me thing? To sit in a room where someone had decided I was small, and to wait, and to let the truth surface on its own timeline. Not because I was afraid to speak, not because I didn't know my own worth, but because I had learned, slowly and with some difficulty, that the kind of credibility that lasts is not announced. It is demonstrated, and demonstration takes patience. I had built my career on patience, on learning the rooms before I tried to change them, on asking the question I already knew the answer to, just to see how someone responded, on choosing, again and again, the long game over the quick win. It wasn't always satisfying. There were nights like the party where I sat in my car in the driveway for a long minute before going inside, weighing the cost of presence against the comfort of absence. There were dinners where I smiled through comments that required real work not to answer. There were years when my silence looked like weakness from the outside, and I had to be at peace with that, because I knew what it looked like from the inside. But this was the thing: the quiet accumulates. The work adds up. The patience compounds. And then one day, a man is explaining real estate to you at a birthday party, and you can simply let him, because the $240 million answer is already on file where it needs to be. My phone buzzed on the table. A calendar reminder from my assistant. Q4 kickoff meeting, 8 a.m., Monday. Leadership team only. I cleared the table, rinsed the wine glasses, turned off the kitchen light. Monday was going to be a good day.